and welcome to the Doofcast, the official variety podcast of doofmedia.com. For the 100th time, my name is Scott Daly, and I am your host.
And for, like, the 97th time, I am your co-host, Matt Friedman.
Wait, what?
I mean, there are a few episodes I've missed in there, I'm pretty sure.
I guess.
So anyway, about this TV show.
This what?
The 100. The TV show on CW. Space station-born teenagers sent back to a post-apocalyptic Earth. The one that you said we were going to talk about on this week's episode?
Yeah. I said episode 100 would be the one where we look back on the 100 episodes of the podcast.
What?
Yeah, like a clip show kind of, except I'm actually too lazy to pull real clips, so we're just going to talk about them.
So I didn't need to watch all those episodes of the 100?
No, you didn't.
Huh.
Can we just do the show now?
I guess.
Hello, everyone. This week on our 100th episode of the Doofcast, we're going to be doing something a little bit different. It's going to be a little bit of a wild and crazy show here, Matt. We are going to be talking about movies, which we do a lot, but not any specific movie. Like we said, we're kind of going to do a clip show. It's our 100th episode. We're celebrating it, and we're going to do that by looking back on the past, I guess I'm saying 100 episodes, but realistically the past 99 episodes, and talking about some of our favorites, our favorite things that have been recommended to us, a lot of fun stuff like that. We're just going to have a good time, Matt. We're just going to have some fun.
That sounds really different.
Does it sound really different?
I just mean it'll be interesting having a conversation that is not about a specific thing.
Yeah, and in which we've done little to no planning, which is not like us at all.
Really remarkably little.
I think our script here says main segment, talk. Just talk.
Yeah. Things.
Yeah. So I guess, well, how do we start this? How do we start this talk? I guess we could say what else we're doing. At the end of the episode, we're going to have another update on the state of the movie industry, because a lot of crazy stuff is happening again. And then I want to finish by asking you an all important question, and we'll talk about the answer to that question. Okay,
that sounds very dramatic.
People are going to tune in to the end now because they don't know.
Just going to skip over the whole conversation.
No, don't do that.
So I don't know. I mean, I was looking over our list of our past 100 episodes, and a couple of I was like, you know, we had talked about picking our favorite ones, and I was like, as usual, I get very philosophical about the concept of favorite, because
sure.
First of all, it's favorite in what sense, right? So I thought of at least two senses in which I had favoriteness spectrums, and there's probably more, and we can maybe come up with some more as we go along, but
sure.
There was one of them was how much did I enjoy the conversation, and how much did I enjoy the actual discussion we had and the product, the final podcast as it is. The other one that I thought of is how glad am I that I watched this thing that I hadn't watched before, or seen, or read, or played.
Sure.
And so yeah, those are the two things that kind of jumped out to me. Did you have any similar thoughts about not just what were your favorites, but what do you think? What were you thinking of when you were thinking of favorite?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right there, because I think there's definitely two different things that I really love about doing this show, and the first one is diving deep into these movies that I love. That like the deconstructing series are some of my most favorite parts of doing this show, because it's I already knew I loved The Matrix, but we're going to spend 2 hours trying to really dive into that movie, because no one has ever done that before, ever.
Right.
And I really enjoy doing that. But yeah, I mean, on the other hand, there are, half of our show, basically, just the way the number of patrons we've had and the number of requests we've had from our patrons via Patreon, half of our show has been us watching stuff that other people recommended to us. And sometimes in those, it's something we've already seen and they just want to hear us talk about it. But sometimes it's stuff that neither of us had ever heard about ever. And that is kind of an exploration of new media, of things that you never would have watched before. And there is something inherently enjoyable about discovering something you absolutely love that a day before you didn't even know existed.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. And I think maybe if I had to make some kind of cross rubric, multi-dimensional thing, the best episodes overall would be the ones where it was like, in my opinion, like a thing that I hadn't seen before that I was really excited to get to see, watch, play, and I felt like we had a good conversation about it.
Sure.
One of the ones that jumps out to mind for me would be Soma,
Mm-hmm.
because like I never would have played that game. Don't play a lot of video games. Um, Immensely enjoyed it, and I really thought we had a good conversation about it too. That would be one example.
Yeah, yeah. Let's talk about Soma for a little bit, and let's talk about video games for a little bit.
Sure.
Stat wise, looking at our shows, we've only done 3 episodes on video games since our reboot. I guess that's an important thing to say here at the top. This is the 100th episode of the Doofcast, as it is now. We did another show on this same feed before we rebranded, before we changed the name of our media company and decided to go a different direction. And we did about, I think, 108 plus episodes of that. So this is not technically like the 100th time you and I have talked about movies or anything. But this is us, rebranding and going for something very specific. And in this very specific 100 episode stretch, 3 video games. We talked about Undertale, we talked about Soma, and we talked about The Beginner's Guide. And I don't know why, but for some reason, I would list all 3 of those episodes near the top of my list of favorite episodes that we've done. And I think it is for, a combination of everything you just talked about, where none of these games I had played before. And all of them, I really loved the conversation.
Yeah.
And all of them, I really, really enjoyed the games. And I felt like we had something to say about the games. Sometimes there's episodes on here, and I don't mean any disrespect to anyone or anyone that's recommended stuff, but I get in front of this microphone and I'm just like, what the hell am I going to talk about? And I usually find a way to like struggle my way through it. I think that's what, when we talk about anime, I feel like that's where I am, where I'm just like, I'm looking at my notes and I'm thinking about what I'm going to say before we start recording. And I'm just like, what the fuck am I going to say in this episode? Can someone pick up my slack? Do we have a guest on that can say more than I can? With these video games, I never felt that. I always felt like I had a ton to say about these 3 games. And I think Soma specifically is probably one of my favorite video game experiences in the past, like, half decade or so.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. I am really, really glad we played that. And like it actually kind of set me off thinking like, oh, I maybe I'm missing something by having sort of exile video games from my life, because I don't talk about that a lot, but like over on the Freeman Bros secret patron only podcast this last week, me and my brother talked about video games a lot, and like reflecting on video games, I realized like I overdid video games so much in high school that I like decided I was not going to allow myself to do video games anymore. And that's kind of a lie, because I play a lot of StarCraft, but I see that as like a just thing that I turn my brain off. It doesn't really count. But like I'm missing out. I'm obviously missing out on stuff if stuff like Soma is out there, and I'm just like denying myself that that joy, that artistic experience.
Yeah. I played a lot of games. I think I've always played more video games than you. And this year for me has been a very intense video game year, because of the pandemic and what started out as a furlough that turned into unemployment for me, that is finally over now, thank goodness. I spent a lot of my time playing video games. I spent a lot of my time, in fact, going through my childhood and replaying every single Final Fantasy game. I still have one more to play, Matt, and I'm going to finish. I swear I'm going to finish. I don't know when it's going to be, but I'm going to finish. And I actually had it was a very educational experience for me, because I was playing these games and I was comparing my experiences with these Final Fantasy games to the experiences that you and I had playing Soma, or the Beginner's Guide, which is a game that still just knocked me off my feet
Yeah.
when I realized what it was doing. And I realized how much my taste has changed. And that's not to say I didn't enjoy a lot of the Final Fantasy games I played. I did. I had fun with a lot of them. I do think there's moments of brilliant storytelling in those games. There's moments of brilliant gameplay in those games. But it's not really what I go to video games for when I'm looking for, like, when I go to video games and I'm looking to be wowed when it comes to story. I'm looking for this thing to do something with storytelling that I can't get anywhere else. And those don't really do it for me. The Final Fantasy series is kind of infamous for like chasing movie style storytelling. And that's what they're doing. And when they do well, I get the feeling that I get when I'm watching a good TV show. That's that. And I had that moment several times throughout this journey in Final Fantasy. I had this moment where I was like, oh my God, this is like I'm watching a movie and the movie's working on me. Or I'm watching a TV show and the TV show's working on me. That's what it feels like. But that's not video games. It's not. And a game like Soma is a game that I just think is doing everything that I think video games can really excel at while really fucking you over the head with this really wonderful story.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think I just like to talk about video games more, honestly.
It's so weird, right? Because that's not something you and I ever set out to do. I think in our old podcast, we had a couple episodes on video games where I think I talked about Final Fantasy 15 with Michael on an episode because you hadn't played that. So I invited him on a talk. I think we talked about Pokemon. I mean, we had an episode on EverQuest on our old show as well.
Yeah.
I think talking about video games is very fun, and I enjoy doing it as well. I don't know if I'd ever want to like do a video game show because I think there's so many bad games out there that I would just be miserable 7 weeks out of 8. And then once we'd get like a game that both of us really connect to and really have a lot to say about.
Well, honestly, a big part of it is the time commitment. Like, you know, the video games can take an arbitrary amount of time. And that's a big problem when you're trying to schedule a weekly show.
Hey, Matt, I've been playing Final Fantasy games every day for 5 hours a day since May. So they take a long time. They take a long time.
Yeah. So that's a bit of a problem. I mean, it was, you know, the Beginner's Guide. You and I love the Beginner's Guide, but it just happens to be like the length of a movie, roughly. So
yeah, right.
It's not a huge investment.
There is a game that our friends at the Doof Media Game Club did a couple months ago that I really would like you to find time to play, called Outer Wilds, that I think is that type of game that is really going to spark your curiosity and your interest. That I would really like you to play.
Yeah,
it is a bit longer. It's not huge, but it's definitely more than like a movie sized game.
Yeah, it looked fun. I think I watched their episode, and I get why this would be awesome.
Yeah. And I think, you know, we can if we ever feel the hankering of having another good game conversation, I think the episodes that we've done have allowed us both to realize what type of games we like talking about, and therefore we can kind of search out those games. I think there's a lot of the games that you seem to like a lot they're called walking sims, but that's usually a derogatory phrase, and I don't like it because there's not a lot of like action oriented gameplay, like Twitch type of gameplay. It's mostly just experiencing a story, and you do still have to do things. You're still interacting with the game, but not like Fortnite or whatever.
Yeah. Sure. I definitely prefer things more along that axis. So
sure. And there are a lot of games like that, and I've played many of them because I enjoy them a lot too. And maybe we can in the future have episodes where I bring one to you that I know you're going to like and we talk about it. Or we could have patrons continue to recommend really great games of this kind for us because like you said, those are fun episodes. Yeah.
I mean, maybe one thing to say if we're kind of wrapped up with that short little video game discussion interlude,
sure,
is like, I don't know if this is like a very obvious thing in a certain sense, but it's also a thing where I don't know if we ever just say it out loud, which is that, you know, the Doofcast is basically composed of a few distinct kinds of thing, right? Like we're covering a Patreon produced thing where a patron has decided they want us to watch a particular movie, TV show, video game, and then we talk about that, and that's very often something we've never seen before. Very often something I never would have watched or not or whatever in my life, and then recently we started doing the council of Doof, where certain tier of patron, they basically vote on what they want us to watch out of a pool, which is similar, basically another way of getting us to watch things that we probably wouldn't otherwise watch. Although just looking over those have tended to be things that we've already seen, but we're going to talk about now. And then the other class of thing that we've done has been the Deconstructing Directors series, which I enjoy a great deal, and so do you.
Yeah.
That's really most of what we've done, actually.
I mean, just getting down to literal numbers. Of our 99 episodes before this one, 46 of them were patron produced episodes. 7 of them were council episodes. So that's over half of them were episodes in which we are not picking the topic, which is kind of crazy to me when you think about it. Like I never really sat down and added that all up, but it's true that this is a majority other people suggested, recommended show, which is not something that you and I ever really set out to do. Like that wasn't the plan, right? When we said we had the Daily Planet podcast, was really just, we're going to talk about whatever the fuck we feel like. It was even in the slogan, whatever we feel like talking about. And we transitioned over to this, and we had this Patreon reward that was very successful, and we enjoyed doing it. And it just kind of became the most of the show. And it's not, and I'm not saying I dislike that. It's just, it surprised me when I actually looked at the numbers. I was pulling everything together today. 46 patron episodes, 7 Council of Doof so far. That number will keep going up. 27 Deconstructing Directors series, 10 shows I'm just calling variety shows, which is just like stuff where we just had random topics that weren't like, we're going to talk about this specific movie or this specific TV show, just random stuff. And then 4 episodes were new movie reviews, where a new movie came out and we're going to talk about it, which is something we've basically all together stopped. and not because it's 2020 and no new movies are coming out, but just I think we made a conscious decision. We didn't really want to do that anymore.
It just, I mean, that's funny because I think we used to do a lot of that on the old show.
It was basically all that.
I think part of the reason for that actually, before I say that, I was going to say the other thing we do is obviously book clubs, but they don't actually they're not numbered Doofcast episodes. They're just on this feed. But I think it's worth pointing out, we've done, in that time frame, we've basically done like 24.
It's more than that. I think we're in the 30s now, actually.
Yeah, you're right. I'm like a whole year off of that calculation. like maybe 36 possibly book clubs.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. But yeah, like it's funny because I remember, back in 2017, 2018, we would be like, so what are we going to talk about this weekend? And then we'd just kind of be like, I don't know. What did you watch recently? Nothing. I don't know. Something on Netflix, and like it was very, I still think we did good work back then, but like it was hard. It was kind of hard to figure out what we were going to talk about. So that's one of the reasons actually that we did Deconstructing Directors, is it was like, all right, well, at least this way there's a long list of things, and if we don't have any like new movie to talk about, then we'll just pick the next one off of the Deconstructing Directors list.
Yeah, and I think a part of it was also just the incredibly true fact that you have 3 children, and you getting out to the theater at least once a week was never a reasonable calculus in this whole thing.
Yeah, that's true, and also like there just aren't. I mean, maybe you disagree with me about this, but like I feel like there are many weeks where there's just nothing good out, and or nothing where I'm like, oh, I really need to go see this. Like I really need to go spend 2 to 3 hours of my precious weekend time watching this movie, like as opposed to any of the other things I could be doing. So.
Yeah, I mean, that I will agree with. Yeah. I do think, when theaters come back in 2024 is what we're heading towards. When theaters come back and theater movie schedules, theater release schedules have gotten back up to the point they were before this year, with the increased amount of streaming that's happening right now, I do think there's going to come a time where there is going to be a new movie out every week that I'm going to want to see at least.
Mhm.
Now, maybe not one that I want to go to the theater for, one that's going to be on HBO Max, on Paramount Plus, on Peacock, on Netflix, on Hulu, on Amazon Prime, on whatever, Apple TV Plus. Like, there's so many services now, and I do think we're getting to the point where like there's always going to be a movie. Like I do think that.
Mhm.
Now, does that mean that's what I want to do? Does that mean I want to have a show where we review the new movie? No, I don't. I don't like that as much. I love talking about new movies. Like some of my favorite new movie conversations, looking at the list, I loved you and I's conversation about the movie Us. I thought that was a wonderful conversation. I
Yeah,
thought that
me
was a
too.
great movie, and I really loved diving into that movie with you. But then, movies like Captain Marvel, which is a movie that I liked considerably more than you did. But even though I did, I just don't think it was a very fun conversation.
Yeah.
It's just a movie that maybe it would be a better thing. It would be a better for a conversation to like really where I sat down and really thought about the movie and took down notes. But when you're watching a movie in a theater, I'm not taking notes. I'm not writing stuff down. I'm not remembering it. I'm just kind of going with a gut reaction type of podcast, and I don't like doing that as much.
Hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, one of the things that I definitely notice as I look over this list is like what my immediate gut reaction is to seeing, the episode names that we went through, and it's
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting because I don't know where that gut reaction necessarily comes from. Like I agree with you. I look at that Captain Marvel episode and like I don't actually remember what we talked about, but I share your feeling that it was probably kind of a
Mm-hmm.
uh, somewhat superficial conversation. I think it's probably just because I know that I didn't come to any shocking breakthroughs about the
Sure,
deep
sure.
complexity and nuance of Captain Marvel, whereas the Us conversation, I think there's is so much richness there. There's so much, um, God, like you think about that movie and just there's so many different facets to it. It's like, man,
Yeah,
if we didn't have a good conversation about Us, then we should quit. Um,
yeah, yeah. Well, and I think like one of the things is for scheduling purposes, our show schedule is basically set in stone a month in advance. I know what we're doing for our um, October 30th show right now. Like I
yeah,
know already, and
right.
I might not have told you yet, but the important part is it's scheduled. We know what we're doing. It's planned. And with these new movies, like either we decide a month in advance, hey, we're going to cover this movie, or we don't do it. And the problem with that is then you go to the movie and you're like, fuck, I don't have anything to say about this movie.
Yeah.
And so that doesn't really work for how our schedule works. I mean, I think that happened with the last Star Wars movie. We had planned on doing an episode on The Rise of Skywalker. We had planned on doing that because we did an episode on The Force Awakens. We did an episode on The Last Jedi. And I thought it would be very fitting for us to kind of circle back and do an episode on the final film of the trilogy. And then you and I went to that movie and we came home and we were like, we don't got anything to say about this movie. I mean, not anything good, at least. Like, it's just going to be us like snarking at how bad this movie was for an hour, and that's not the kind of thing I really want to do. You ended up making a really interesting essay about the movie after you had time to sit about it and think about it and write about it, and then like gather your thoughts. But I still don't know if that's what I would want an episode of the podcast to be.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I feel like, maybe like I'm definitely going to want to talk about Dune when that movie comes out next year, right? But so it's like there are
Sure.
certain movies that I can say I definitely want to talk about.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, this is like the movie I talked about last week. I'm thinking of Ending Things, which is a movie that I know you and I would have a wonderful conversation about. Whether we're going to make that a full episode or not, sometime in the future, I don't know. But I know this because I've seen it, and because it's Charlie Kaufman. To be fair, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like the sad irony of this whole thing is that Avengers Endgame, Captain Marvel, Us, The Umbrella Academy, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and are some of our highest downloaded shows, right? The stuff when we're covering the brand new thing was some of our highest downloaded episodes. And
mhm.
and that's why people do it, right? Like that
Sure.
people look at those analytics and say, I want to do this. But I think the cool thing about you and I don't know, listeners, you'll have to let us know if you're enjoying this conversation. I don't know. This is a lot of inside baseball stuff. I'm enjoying it, but
Yeah.
one of the things I like about what we've kind of done with this thing is this has always been our smaller show. It has always been our like secondary show, like the Worm podcast, the Ward podcast, and now the Stephen King podcast have kind of been the primary thing, both in how much time we spend on it and how many people listen to it. And so because of that, because we know we have those things, I've always felt the freedom in this show to not chase the downloads, to not like say we have to do the thing that's going to get the most amount of downloads, to be okay with an episode about an obscure German movie that came out 10 years ago that most people probably aren't going to click on because they haven't heard about the lives of others.
Yeah.
And I don't have to worry about it. And I love that freedom. And I would never want to turn this show into a show that is chasing that kind of thing.
Yeah. The freedom and the variety, right? Because if you're just like really, if you're just chasing the downloads, then you just talk about superhero movies and Star Wars movies. Like that is absolutely guaranteed. In fact, we could probably just endlessly talk about the Rise of Skywalker, like over and over. We'd probably get really good numbers. But that, like, neither of us wants to do that. It's not valuable. It's not a valuable use of our time. It's not it's not sharpening us. It's not making us better at thinking about storytelling or any of the goals that we actually have. It's much better for me to watch, Psychopaths or something that I would just never watch in a million years and then be like, wow, this has so much in it that I just wouldn't have expected and like overcame maybe some of my biases that I had coming into it. Or like Rango, where I was just like, oh, it's like a stupid kids movie. And then we had like an amazing time watching Rango. Like just the variety and the surprise and I think that's maybe one thing I like about the video games is like, I do like them for themselves, but I also like throwing them into the mix with what is mostly a list of movies. It pushes you out of the tendency to become kind of rigid and repetitive in the way that you approach things, because like, you can't just straight up apply the same sorts of techniques of analysis and thinking to a game that you do to a movie. And then after you talk about that game, maybe you pick up a little angle that you carry forward when you're discussing the movie on the next week. And like, I think that's been, like, that's the most fun thing for me is like, I go back to the beginning of the Daily Planet podcast, however many years ago that was. And like, I just I'm not thinking as clearly as I am now. I'm not asking the same questions I am now. I'm not noticing the same things I am now. And that's because we've spent years turning the crank of like considering a new thing that requires a new perspective, a new way of thinking about it, asking new questions, and then again, taking those tools forward with us. And it's been a fantastic learning experience.
Yeah, well put. I think that is a good transition to the next thing I wanted to talk about, which is TV and our episodes covering seasons of television.
Mm-hmm.
That's primarily what our TV episodes are, is we're covering an entire season in one episode. 25 of our 99 episodes we're covering TV in some form or fashion, some of them for patrons, some of them one-offs, like I talked about the Umbrella Academy with Michael. But for the most part, I think these are Patreon supported. I want you to watch this. And I gotta say, like, as much as some of these have been enjoyable experiences for me, and I think we'll get into some of the specific instances for both of us, I do struggle with our TV-based episodes. I struggle with them because I think what I enjoy doing the most and what I think we are the best at is diving really deep into something. And really getting into the minutia of how and why it's working. I think that's why I enjoy doing our book podcasts so much, because as you and I were talking about last week, we can spend 15 minutes on a single sentence in a book. We can say, look at the sentence, look at how the sentence is constructed, look at what the sentence is doing, look at what verb usage was here and what does that mean, and how that's changing our opinions of the characters, and how the author is setting a reveal up with this without us really even realizing it. And we can really get into the minutia of that. And when it comes to covering an entire season of television in an hour, there's really just not time to do that. And I feel like, honestly, the more content we have, the more I struggle with what to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I think very often you're just hearing our superficial reactions to things, and
Yeah.
unfortunately, I mean,
Yeah.
I really did like Psychopaths, but to talk about Psychopaths, the entire first season of Psychopaths in an hour, you're just skipping around between the kind of the flashiest things about the show that stuck out to you that you really liked.
Hmm.
You're not digging into it, which I mean that's fine. Like that's a fine kind of conversation to have, I suppose, but it's not
Hmm.
necessarily my favorite kind of conversation to have.
Yeah. And I don't think
Um,
it's one that I particularly excel at. I like, the exception to this rule for me is our conversations about um, the Avatar, because and largely I'm going to give that up to our Australian friends who have guested on every single one of those shows, and I think it's just because, okay, there's so much. And I'm overwhelmed with things to talk about, and having four people on the show instead of two people on the show to each say, okay, well, there's five things I wanted to talk about, and then we have four people with five things each, and then that fills the show. Whereas when it's just you and me, at times, I'm just like, what the fuck am I going to talk about? What am I
yeah,
going to say? What am I going to say about Code Geass? What am
yeah.
I going to say?
Well, it's funny because I think we do tend to have guests on disproportionately when it's a TV show. I think that's a true statement.
Yes.
And I think that's actually because we're like, look, this was neither of our specific cup of tea. And but this person that we're having on as a guest, they like it. They've told us they want to talk about it. They have things to say about it. So that's
Yeah.
that's our attempted remedy when we don't necessarily um we don't necessarily have a lot to say, or we didn't necessarily love it. And
Yeah.
I don't like to be the guy who is being a grouch. Like when I'm on the Korra episodes, I'm like, this was fine. It's like I don't like to. It's like,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
who really wants to listen to that? Like I don't like listening to that kind of thing. And
Hmm.
so it
Hmm.
is like, well, like I don't want to. That's not an episode I want to put out. And I'm not even knocking Korra in saying
Sure.
that. I'm just
Sure.
saying, like, I don't have anything to say about this.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. I think like shows like Cowboy Bebop are ones that I am so thankful we had Matthias on for,
Hmm.
because I think unquestionably he made that show better. I enjoyed that show. I left that conversation liking it way more because of the things Matthias brought to that conversation. And those are some of my favorite shows, right? When I leave the show enjoying the thing more than I came to the episode with.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like, but I don't know how to solve this problem, because I think people are going to still continue to recommend TV, and I am a big TV person, and I want to keep talking about TV. I watch a lot of television. I enjoy TV a whole lot. I want to find a way to do it in a way that I think makes for better episodes, though. And I think one of the things that you and I have talked about that we really haven't had an opportunity to implement yet, but that we're thinking about, is doing this thing where we spend, the first 15-20 minutes of the show talking about that season of TV as a whole, like that we did standard, and then taking the last 20-30 minutes, picking an episode and just diving into the episode. I do think that would kind of accomplish the exact things that I feel like are missing from the television episodes.
Yeah. I think my expectation would be that what that actually ends up looking like is a sort of like that one episode is the structure on which we hang a discussion about the whole show, because you'll be like, yeah, and this character does this in this episode, which
Sure,
I,
sure.
I think worked really well because it was set up in that other episode. And then, so inevitably you're talking about the whole show, but you're talking it in context of a specific episode. And I do think that's a good idea. I think that might
Yeah.
help ameliorate what I see as some of the obstacles to,
Hmm.
you know, having to talk about a whole season of TV that way.
Yeah. So let me ask this question. What was your favorite bit of TV that we've had to watch for this thing?
Yeah, I really like Psychopaths a lot, actually.
Hmm.
I don't know, I don't know if that's surprising or not. That
No.
yeah. I think I pretty obviously was into it when we talked about it. Um, I'm rapidly scrolling back through every. I mean, I liked Avatar: The Last Airbender a lot. Like
Mhm.
that almost goes without saying. Yeah, those would be the ones that jumped out at me. Assuming this list is, yeah, it's accurate, of course. So yeah, that's.
Excuse me, excuse me, Matt. How dare you?
What about what? Let's just brush that over. What about you, Scott?
Yeah, I mean, Avatar has quickly become like one of my favorite storytelling things ever. So like it's on at least my top 10 of that list. So really, really enjoyed Avatar. Didn't there were times when I had trouble with those conversations, but not as much as with other stuff. Really enjoyed that. Love, Death, and Robots is a little thing that I really, really liked.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's going to be more of that. I hope there are, but it was just like these little short stories that I just absolutely adored. Really liked that. What else? What else did I really like? Well, I did not like Psychopaths. I'm sorry, Matt.
This is terrible.
There are shows like The Dragon Prince and Young Justice and She-Ra that I enjoyed watching. I definitely enjoyed watching, but once we were done for the show, I was just like, okay,
Yeah.
that's enough. That's enough. I'm done. And I've not picked any of those up again. And I know there are going to be people listening to this that are like screaming at me for that because I've heard that She-Ra actually ends incredibly. And maybe one day will come along where I'll pick it up again and do that. But it's so low on my priority poll that it's probably not going to happen anytime soon.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
I do think Steven Universe is a show that really affected me. And it is a show that I continue to watch after we finish the show. I watched all of season 2 and I have yet to pick it up again because I got distracted with other stuff. But that is a show that's much higher on my priority because I really enjoyed what that show was doing and how it was doing it.
Yeah. I think just like so Steven Universe benefits from having like these really, really short episodes.
Yes.
They're like 10 minutes, right?
Yep.
So there's always really good story economy. And every episode is clever and fun and cute and enjoyable and sometimes breaks your heart and you're never like, well, that was a terrible episode of Steven Universe.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, TV shows in general lend themselves to the failure mode of, oh, that was just a bad episode and I wasted 30 to 45 minutes of my life watching a boring, poorly structured, treading water bad episode. And that's the sort of thing where like me personally, like you get like one of those before I just turn my back on the show. and then if I have to keep watching the show because we're doing an episode on it, then I'm just going to be really mad at the show.
Yeah, but I do think with episodes like that, I do think there's something to be said about really spending some time on like why did that happen? Especially in a show that you would normally like, like it's a show that you really, really enjoy and you're having a good time with. And then you just get to one of these dud episodes. And I think it is worth taking the time to kind of explore why did I feel that way? Why did this not work? I like those kind of conversations. But again, I think when you're in the season long in one episode thing, there's not really room for that because I do think that one episode gets lost in the shuffle a little bit. Of course, that's not on the forefront of your mind because you've got 8 other, 12 other episodes to talk about and you liked those more. So of course you're going to focus on that. Yeah. I think this is somewhere, one day, Matt, one day in the future, one day my prince will come, and we'll do our Buffy podcast. And there are going to be episodes of that show that are bad. And we're going to have to do entire episodes of that show that are bad. And that is where I think I could really get into the nitty gritty of, okay, this is a bad episode. Why? But again, the format of this podcast is just not conducive to that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it could go down a rabbit hole. Just like I don't mind when like Star Trek: The Next Generation has like a bad episode in there because it's like, yeah, like whatever. It's sort of that's just kind of the show that it is, where it's got different writers. There's not it's the opposite of a serialized narrative. It's a bunch of one-offs basically, and so you can have one time where it's just like, well, that was a bad concept. the writer didn't understand the characters. Like, it's not even hard to explain why they're bad sometimes, but like some of these shows, well, in fact, almost all these shows we've talked about, except except Love, Death, and Robots, have been like serialized narrative stories. And then when there's a
Yeah.
bad episode in there, you're just really thrown off of the flow of it.
Sure.
And then also, it's actually unusual that they're like usually it's more like Game of Thrones or something, where like, wow, this is great, and then it gets worse exponentially.
Yeah.
Like, that's fairly, I'd say, I don't know, that's a different phenomenon than
I mean,
the random bad episode.
This is, to me, a flaw of what modern television has become, to be honest with you, that a random bad episode is not just a random bad episode that you can shrug off and move on. It's 1 hour out of your 8-hour story is now shitty. And that is a completely different calculus you have to make in your head, because it is a key hour in your story and it's bad. That's a totally different thing. And it's why I think the serialized episode, like quasi episodic, quasi-serialized stories of our youth are the best way to do TV, in my opinion.
Yeah, right. I mean, I think a lot of my favorite things are like that. Like, I mean, it's funny because Cabin Pressure is not TV, but it was a thing where
I put it in TV for this thing.
Yeah,
by the way,
but
I didn't know
like,
where else to lump it.
Exactly. Yeah, right. I mean, audio. I mean, did we ever do a Magnus Archives episode?
We have not. No.
Because Magnus Archives is serialized, but it also has the cool sort of nature of being something where a lot of those episodes you could just swap them around in the sequence and it wouldn't really matter that much.
Yeah. Can I now publicly say, and this is, I'm going to get swarmed and tarred and feathered and all that, that I think Magnus Archives was better when it was more episodic and less like bunch of stories.
Yeah. I mean, I think I agree with you. I think I've talked to other people who feel the same, and I'm not going to be too hard on them because I see what they're doing. But in fact, I don't even think I view it as a criticism to say that it was better before. It's like, well, this is the ending of the story.
Sure,
but whatever. We don't need to dig into Magnus Archives too much. I just wanted to say that was at its best. I agree with you. That was at its best when it was episodic, and there is an overall arc also to Cabin Pressure, but you sort of do feel like you could rearrange some of those episodes and it wouldn't really matter that much, right?
Yeah,
and I like that. Like, I feel like that breeds a certain kind of storytelling that I think maybe what I like about it is that it is less prone to some of the failure modes of when people try to tell these like long epic stories, and that's really hard to do well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think there's a long epic story, and then there's a story that's very long that is actually a collection of smaller stories, and that is what episodic TV is. That is what, I think that's what Wildbow is writing a lot of the times, to get back to Worm and Ward, which are a big part of our show. So it's okay we talk about it. I mean, we're going to talk about a book tomorrow, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. That's what that is to me. There is an overarching plot of this novel, but you could have published this novel serially, like chapter by chapter, because most of them are like mini stories.
I think a lot of it was actually originally published that way.
Oh, really? I did not know that.
Didn't surprise me at all to find that out. But I'm so glad you said that, though, because that was my exact feeling about that book. It's like it's a book that reads like a TV series in the best way.
Yep.
Yeah.
Spoilers for our conversation on it tomorrow.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I guess to bring it back to episode 101 and beyond, what do we want our TV episodes to look like? Do we want to declare, hey, let's not talk about TV anymore? When I say that out loud, there's part of me that goes, oh man, like there's part of me that doesn't want that, while also recognizing that I just said, hey, this is probably sometimes my least favorite episodes to do.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if you look at the Doofcast quota as a kind of finite resource, like you only live so long, you only get to do so many episodes.
Are you saying we're not going to make it to 200?
I mean, even if we got to 10,000, you're still making choices about what fraction of those episodes you want to be
Sure.
TV versus movie versus video games, right? And so I guess I would say, you tell me like a quarter of our episodes have been TV shows. That seems like too much. That's a lot of watching TV, a lot of watching things where, just fully honestly, I look down the list of the TV shows that we've covered, and most of them I'm lukewarm on.
Sure.
There have been a couple where I'm like, I'm really glad that they made that I was forced to watch this thing. Most of them I'm like, eh. And to me, I like the adage, with everything in life, it should be either hell yes or no. And I'm not hell yes on a lot of these. So yeah.
Well, I think honestly, part of this, and we're gonna breach the anime containment zone right now. Part of this is because a lot of the television shows that we have done have been animes, because our patrons' never-ending quest to make us like anime, that has succeeded. You've won already, because like I'm looking at this list right now and look at all this anime I like. Look, there's this movie called Your Name. That's the 4th episode we did. On episode 4, you had already succeeded because I enjoyed that movie a whole lot.
Yep. And you liked Avatar: The Last Airbender, which is anime.
which we officially declared anime. So no sense arguing about that.
Yeah, I mean, we liked Mob Psycho quite a lot. I think we.
Yeah, we did.
I mean, I think some of these you were maybe more lukewarm than me, but I think that there was a lot to appreciate about Mob Psycho. There was a lot to appreciate about Ping Pong, the animation.
Yeah.
I re-listened to that one recently, and you and I actually were both fairly glowing about that show.
It's me and sports, man. Me and sports.
Yeah, that's the trick. And then I liked Psychopaths a lot. But, so yeah, and then we liked Akira. Akira's great.
And Redline.
And Redline.
Yeah.
We loved Redline. You've won. You can stop now.
Yeah, so we've done 16 episodes on anime of our 99, which is that's a lot. If you count Korra and Avatar, which many people don't, and that's fine. I don't care. And I've liked more of them than I haven't liked. Do you want to know the ones I absolutely did not like?
Yes.
Puella Magica, Monica, whatever. Code Geass. And Psychopaths, I was just lukewarm on. I'm still calling Castlevania Season 1 anime, and I did not like that at all. And that's it, man. That's it. So you've won. You did it. Good job, folks.
Yeah.
You did it.
Yeah. Cool.
You can stop now, please.
It only took.
I didn't even put Cowboy Bebop as anime. 17, man.
17, and we liked Cowboy Bebop.
We did.
Yeah,
we did.
That was a good conversation.
It was a great conversation, folks. You did it. Game over. Game over.
Game over. Yeah. Yeah. So I think yeah. Just speaking high level, I don't know if I want to like stop watching TV shows, but. Mm-hmm. I think I want to turn, if there's a series of knobs that govern the ratio of shows, I think I want to turn the TV show ratio down a bit.
What would you do a corresponding turn up? Like, would you say less TV shows, more video games?
Yeah. I mean, we've done so few video games. We've done like 3 out of 100. Mm-hmm. I mean, I wouldn't mind doing, at least doubling that number.
Sure.
With of course a kind of, caveat of like the kinds of games that I'm probably going to like, not because like I don't know.
Yeah, we don't need Matt plays Dark Souls up in this thing. That's not gonna do anything for anyone.
Maybe I'm not being open-minded enough. I mean, the other thing is I'm actually like this is a joke, but also not a joke. I'm like really bad at video games.
Yeah, me too.
I think I've told the story before where like I had played through like the entirety of Dead Space. I was like somewhere more than halfway through Dead Space, and I was like stuck on this boss, and I handed it to Michael actually, and he just beat the boss in one try.
And I think the most important part is that he had never played the game before.
He had never played the game before. Yeah.
I think you're being a little too hard on yourself, because I will say that Michael is like scary good at video games. Like he picks them up very quickly and just beats them. Yeah. So like, yes, he made you look silly, but but he's good at them. So I would say, Matt, you and I I am a little bit better at video games than you are because I
Uh-huh.
play them more than you do. But I think you are fine at video games. You can handle moving around in three-dimensional space in video games, which is
Yeah.
something that a lot of people cannot, my wife included. Because if you haven't played a 3D game with control sticks before, it's like
Yeah.
impossible. Like the funny thing is, I tried to get my wife to play The Last of Us because I know she'll enjoy the story, and she just couldn't. Like it's just like it's and it's not even something you can teach. I
Yeah.
feel like because I'm just like just move the stick, just do it, and I don't know how to teach this
No.
to you.
You just have to sit there and reprogram your brain.
Yeah,
I mean, it's funny because like I am being too hard on myself because it's like, yeah, I'm bad at video games for a millennial, but like I also remember playing like Halo with my dad once, who had never played Halo or any two stick video game, and it was like I was going as easy on him as I could, and I was just like 100-0 basically.
sure.
Which is completely like I'm not even like that's just the predictable consequence when someone has never played a game like that before. So
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to movies, shall we?
Yeah.
59 of our 99 episodes were about movies, so it's pretty safe to say we are a movie-oriented podcast. As we said, 27 of them are deconstructing series, and we'll talk about those in a bit. But I wanted to talk to you about some of the movies that we've watched that were recommended to us, and perhaps what your favorites of those would be.
Yeah. Sounds good. My favorite of the ones recommended to us. So this goes under my I made two categories. I made my
You did.
the Matt Freeman Glad You Made Me Watch / Play This award. So which I just gave it fairly liberally actually. So let's see. I was glad I liked Your Name. That was one I'd never seen. Glad you made me watch it. We're
There's
talking just about movies,
on this
right?
list. Yeah.
What?
There's a lot of TV on this list.
Yeah.
I'm looking at your Glad You Made Me list, and there's a lot of TV, Mister. I don't want to do as much TV.
This sucks. This is terrible. I'm learning things I didn't want to know. Breaker Morant was one where I thought that was one where like I'm glad I watched it. Never would have watched it otherwise, and I thought we had a good conversation.
Yeah, I love that. Totally agree on that one.
Rango was another one. Never would have watched that in a million years, and I just was like, oh my god, this is genius.
Yeah. I would. I agree with those. I would put The Lives of Others on my list. It is a movie that I had heard of, but I never would have watched that movie. And I do appreciate like one of the things we did at our end of the decade episode in December was we told our audience, hey, bring us some foreign films. We want to expand. And okay, this was a weird year, and we didn't necessarily do a great job of that this year, except for Japan. We've got Japan covered. As I said then, and I will say again, Japan covered. Let's do some other places. And we've got a Russian film coming up on our list next month. We're going to watch a film from Russia, so I'm very excited about that. But I appreciate these movies from other countries that I never would have seen. Like I think one of our first ones was a movie called Three Idiots. Actually, it's episode 23, which is a movie out of India that I really enjoyed.
Yeah, I love that one too. That I don't know why that's not on my list. Honestly, I like that one a lot. Also, Tampopo.
Yes,
I like that one a lot.
Did you know,
what?
Matt? I have still not had ramen since that. It's become a thing now, and I can just never have ramen again because I left that episode wanting ramen so bad.
Yeah,
and that was 78 episodes ago, and I still have not had ramen.
So basically a year and a half ago.
Yes.
Dear God. Yeah, no, like immediately, like I think after that episode, I just started eating lunch at ramen shops instead of whatever I'd been doing before that, and then I kept doing that, and for forever, maybe. I don't know. I like ramen a lot.
Remember when those two people traded the egg yolk back and forth in their mouths?
I do. Yes, I forgot about that, but thank you.
You never will forget about that.
It's funny because at the ramen place that I would go to, like every single like all of their broth is cloudy and opaque, and I was always like, does this mean it's bad and they screwed it up, or is this just how it's supposed to be? Because in the movie they implied that it meant that it was messed up. And then I was like, it's still delicious. I don't care. And I ate it at the end.
Great story, Matt. Loved it.
Uh,
Loved the story.
yeah.
Let's see what else. What else? So there's some movies here that I had seen before, but I appreciated getting to revisit them. In the Mouth of Madness was one of those. I think you would probably say Pitch Black and Chronicles of Riddick were ones for you.
Well, those are, yeah, but I mean, those are ones I'm glad we got to talk about. Obviously, I'd already seen them. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah.
Yeah.
Although honestly, like Chronicles of Riddick really disappointed me. I was really disappointed in that one.
Yeah. We had Daniel on for that one, right?
Yes.
I was glad we had Daniel on because I was crushed. I was crushed. Like I genuinely used to love this movie, and I was just like, what was wrong with me? But it was good that Daniel was there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he Daniel can make you like anything.
It's true
because Daniel loves everything.
Yes.
Yeah. What else? What other movies? Any other movies you want to talk about here outside of the deconstructing series? Because I want to handle that separately.
I mean, honestly, like I think maybe probably more than half of the movies we've talked about were ones that I already had seen, and so it's like yeah, I like that movie, but yeah.
I really liked our conversation on the movie Doubt.
Yeah.
Really loved that movie and really enjoyed talking about that one with you, kind of working through the way I felt about it.
I mean, yeah, just I think some of my favorite ones to talk about were like The Matrix. Like, yeah, I've loved that movie forever, and I still love to get to talk about it. I like to get to talk about Live, Die, Repeat.
Yeah, that was a patron one. Edge of Tomorrow. That's what the real name is, right? We just pretend like that's not the name.
I don't even know what they're pretending the real name is. You know, are we talking about? Are we talking about deconstructing directors right now? Because like,
we weren't, but then you talked about The Matrix, so you cheated.
Yeah, so. Well, that's the thing is like, I feel like most of the deconstructing directors movies are movies that I like to talk about. So
yeah. Let's transition to that now because we've been going for about an hour, so we're gonna have to wrap this up. I love doing those, and I think that is something that I get the most out of personally is doing that series because I really enjoy diving into these filmmakers and trying to learn about them and really diving into I think those are the episodes where I talk the most about camera movements, where I talk the most about editing, where I talk the most about the actual craft of filmmaking, because I am trying to pay very special attention to the directorial choices of the movies. And I really, really, really like doing them. And they are also, unfortunately, some of our least popular episodes. I don't know why. I mean, like some of them, there's exceptions to that. Like The Matrix obviously did very well, and Fight Club did very well. But the deconstructing series overall are some of our least popular episodes.
Yeah. I do think it might be worth reconsidering like how we approach it, and not because I think we should do less of it. Actually, I think maybe one issue is like
I think we should do more,
more and more frequently, maybe, because when you spread them out, I mean, basically the way we've been doing it is one deconstructing directors episode per month, roughly. And that, to me, the way my brain works, I need to see them closer together if I'm going to really start thinking like, what is this director's style? What is it they're doing? And what is different from the last movie? I think I have a pretty decent visual memory, but not so good that I can remember the differences, the small differences in like camera movements between, you know, the girl with the dragon tattoo and Alien 3, which I saw, you know, several months beforehand, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah. I mean, yeah, like a long time. Like how many episodes were there between Gone Girl and Alien 3?
Yeah.
Alien 3 was episode 63.
63 versus 91.
Yeah. So I mean, I think we've talked about this before. We talked about this when we finished the Fincher series, but I think we are going to move forward with that plan of less time between them. I think generally our show schedule is going to change a little bit. Our schedule going forward has been, you know, patron episode, other kind of episode, patron episode, other kind of episode, and whatever other kind of episode changed every time. So sometimes it was a council episode, sometimes it was a deconstructing episode, sometimes it was a random kind of variety episode, or we just said, I really want to talk about unlikable protagonists. So we did a whole episode on unlikable protagonists, and I love that episode. Absolutely love that episode. But we're going to stop being so tight with the schedule. We've kind of finally worked our backlog down of patron episodes to where we only have like 2 or 3 or 4 now. And this, of course, could change tomorrow if a bunch of patrons like hop on, which I would be thrilled about, but it would kind of throw my plan up in the air. One of the things we're talking about doing is making the patron episodes like a not necessarily glued to our weekly release schedule type thing. Like we have episodes that come out every Friday, but then once a month we'll also have a patron produced episode that will come out like Tuesday or something. We're talking about that, and the reason we're going to be able to do that possibly is because our friends in Australia are going to be helping us out with the show more often going forward, and so they'll be able to like pick up some slack and help us with that. So there are changes coming to the show, and I think the next 100 episodes I hope look different from this 100, just because of what we learned and what we want to change. And I do think one of those things, Matt, is the deconstructing series. And I think, do we want to announce what the next one's going to be?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
So we reached out to our patrons and we asked we gave them a big list of directors and all the movies those directors have made. And we said, vote for all the ones that you guys want to hear us cover. And we didn't tell them that the one with the most votes is going to win. We told them we were going to look at the numbers and kind of make a plan for what we were going to do. So we have decided, based on everyone's interest and based on our own personal interests, that the next director we are going to do for our Deconstructing Director series is officially Guillermo del Toro. So we're going to be doing a whole series on all of his films, and that is going to be coming soon. I have to look at the schedule, Matt. I think we're actually starting on the Halloween episode. I think we're going to do his first film, Cronus, on the day before Halloween. And then we're going to kind of like run through it, Matt. So it's going to be a while. It's going to be a few months of Guillermo. And then we'll finish that up and maybe do some other stuff. But that's what I want to do. And I think that's what you want to do. And we're going to give this a shot and see what it looks like.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, I am too. I want to spend a lot more time with those movies, and I'm not asking you to, but I am going to try to watch them multiple times and take extensive notes and really bring to you some of the insights I've gained from studying movies and reading an absurd amount of books on movie making. So I want to take those episodes a bit more seriously. I think we already took them pretty serious, but I want to take them a bit more seriously and see, what we can actually learn about these folks. So I'm excited about that.
Me too. Again, that's one of my favorite things to do, and I feel like I learned the most. And I mean, I agree with you. Like I think watching multiple times and definitely taking notes is a better approach, and I benefit more from doing it that way. And because ultimately, like the real reason I want to do these is to sharpen my own understanding of storytelling. That's basic. That's it for me, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fun. It's fun to do these conversations. That's a huge part of it. But like, in terms of what I'm getting out of it on a deeper level, I'm trying to learn, and I learn more if I put in more effort. So yeah.
I will say, Guillermo del Toro is another auteur-ish filmmaker where, for all but I think one of his films, he was both writer and director. And that is a change from what we did last time with David Fincher. And I did kind of struggle with Fincher at times in that regard because he wasn't the writer. I struggled because you and I love to talk about story, and our kind of default mode is to really dive into the story. And I always kind of had to be conscious, or at least there was a nagging part in the back of my head that was like, okay, this is great, Scott, but the director didn't write this. What are you talking about the writing for? And so I do think I'm going to enjoy Del Toro more because at least we will get to talk about his writing, and maybe we can spend time talking about how the writing translates and how his directorial choices accentuate his writing. But I do think it works. This is basically auteur, the series, and I do think it works better if we do have writer directors.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I just like to talk about stories so much that I'm just gonna. So
yeah, it's just gonna happen. Like whether we want to or not, it's gonna happen. Yeah.
All
All right. Well, what else do we want to talk about here, Matt? We got a few things left. That we did 2 episodes on comics, and 2 episodes on short stories. The comics were Unsounded, a web comic, and then we did The Wicked and the Divine. We read, I think, the first 2 volumes of that. I honestly don't remember. And then we did. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I don't remember. Yeah.
And then we did an episode on the short story 17776, and then we did an episode on a couple of Ted Chiang stories that I loved both those stories. So
Oh yeah, I mean, if we're talking about changing ratios, the short stories, whatever you want to call 17776, those are some of my favorites. Those are some of my favorites to read, consume, think about, talk about. They're probably in fact, I was just thinking about the Ted Chiang stories this week, just because of the ideas. Like I was just thinking about the idea of the the multi-layered. Well, I'm not going to go into it because I want people to not be spoiled.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love those. I think short stories are just one of my favorite things in the universe. So
it's so weird. I used to hate short fiction. Hate is the wrong word. I would just be like, I'd rather be reading like a really thick book or watching a really long TV show or something. But I have fallen in love with short fiction, and I think it's been my time really rereading and studying Stephen King that have really turned me around on it, because his short storytelling is some of the best work he does.
Yeah.
And then the more shorts of his I read, the more shorts of other authors I try out, and the more I love them. Lauren Groff, who did that book, The Fates and the Furies, that we both really liked.
Yeah.
That we talked about way long ago on the other show. She released a series of short stories 2 years ago called Florida. And I loved those. I bought that book solely because I knew I liked her as an author. And I was like, okay, well, short story. Oh my gosh, it's so good. It's so good. Short fiction is incredible.
Yeah, right. I mean, I think it's funny. I remember being like much younger and trying to read a book of short stories and just bouncing off of it. And I think the reason was just I was just too young. Like I just didn't have the appreciation for like a short story in my mind is somewhere on the spectrum between a poem and a book.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like sometimes it edges closer to poem, where it's more about the emotions and like painting a picture of a particular moment in a person's life. And I think when you're young, you're just like, I don't care. I don't care about this. This is not, I can't relate to this. The older you get, the more you get to be able to relate to this kind of thing, I think. I'd like to do more short stories for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, and I'd like to try our hand at some poetry as well. I've said on this show many times before that I suck at poetry. I'm bad at it. Learning how to read and analyze poetry is almost an entirely different skill than learning how to analyze and read prose. And it is a skill that I have not flexed, and I am not good at it, and I struggle with it, but I want to learn. And one of the cool things is because we're reading the Dark Tower series, and Stephen King pulls a lot of poetry. I mean, the main character and the entire concept of the Dark Tower and its protagonist Roland comes from a Robert Browning poem. And so we've kind of been forced to spend some time really studying poetry a little bit. And I've like brought meaning out of it in a way that I've never experienced reading poetry before, because I was kind of forced to. I was like, okay, Scott, here's a poem.
Yeah.
And you're going to sit down and you're going to read it until you get it, until you can say something about it in front of a microphone. And I was able to do that, and that felt good. And I want to kind of chase that more. And I don't know how we can do that on the show, but if we're talking about things I would like to try in the future, that's one of them.
Yeah. Or if people, if people have, books of poetry that they want to say, hey, look at this. Then we'll do that. We'll bump that to the front of the line. I don't. Okay,
yeah,
not literally, but
not literally, but yeah.
I'd love to do that. You also mentioned webcomics in there, and this is nothing against the webcomics that we read, but I don't think that the podcast format lends itself to talking about webcomics.
Yeah, I don't either. It's ironic. I was about to say it's so visual, and we're a movie podcast, but there's just something about it that is difficult to translate.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's it's way more. It relies so much on the visual as being an aspect of like what it is. Like you can't like all you can do is just try to describe the images in many cases. Like a lot of the I remember Unsounded, we were just there was a part where I was just kind of like fumbling to describe this visual motif, this visual trick or affectation that they were using, and I just like couldn't. And I was like, well, okay, this is not. Just go look at it. I don't know how to say it. So, yeah. Maybe you know. Honestly, I think the truth may be just like I'm not good at it. I'm not good at talking about visual imagery.
I mean, the truth is I'm not good at talking about comic books. That is my truth. And I accept that about myself for sure.
Yeah. So probably, I mean, we only did 2, like you said. So, you know, maybe that's a good number because I don't know if I want 0, but
yeah, I mean, like I said, there were 2 things I had never read before. I still think I want to go back and finish The Wicked and the Divine. I haven't done that yet, but I would like to finish those. You know, we did order The Stick way long time ago. That's not considered part of this list because it was still with the Daily Planet podcast. And people keep telling me that we need to read that because it like we did not read far enough into that to work. It's really good. But I mean, and I want to do that, but do a show on it. I don't know about that.
Yeah, I mean, I've always wanted to do a show about Achewood, which is one of my favorite things. But to do that, I would have to make you read a certain amount of Achewood. And I mean, I'm sure you would like it. It's just the reason I haven't said, Scott, we're doing Achewood is that I'm just like, I just don't really know if I believe I could have a great conversation about Achewood because it's a comic.
Yeah,
I probably
that's
could,
fair.
But yeah,
I think, you know, as we wrap up this part of the episode, I think the thing we want to make clear to those listening, if y'all found this entertaining or exciting or interesting at all, I don't know. Here's these past 100 episodes and the 100 that happened before them and the 100 that will happen into the future. Our kind of unifying principle has always been we want to make a show that we would enjoy listening to. And that's why for most of this conversation, we've talked about what we liked. We've talked about we liked this movie and we liked this conversation because we feel like if we have a good time listening to them, if I can edit this episode together, publish it, and then take out my iPhone and listen to the thing that I just talked about, then I've made a good episode. Because if I can listen to myself talk about something, then I feel like we've accomplished our goal. And that's been in the back of our head with everything we've done here. If we're not enjoying doing it, and if we're not making something that we would like to listen to, then we shouldn't be doing it anymore. And that's everything that we've moved away from, everything that we stopped doing. Well, not everything, but most of the things we've stopped doing have been because of that fact. And that is going, no matter what we do and no matter how we change and bring new people in, bring more of our partners in, which is absolutely something we'd love to do, that will remain true, that we are going to continue to produce episodes we would like to listen to.
Yeah.
And
yeah. Right. I mean, that's a big part of the reason why we really try to avoid doing episodes where we suspect we're just going to be nitpicking and criticizing, and because we don't like to listen to that.
Yeah, I hate when I fall into that. I really do. And I'm not like, I am not perfect. We have our the author is a genius and everything is intentional mantra that we try to repeat to ourselves. I fail at that all the damn time. And I can feel myself get nitpicky. I can feel myself go like, and usually is not until I'm like 5 minutes into the nitpick where I'm like, Scott, what are you doing? And it's too late by that point. Or it's maybe even the next day when I'm listening to the episode and I'm like, Jesus, why does this matter? Why did I go into that?
Yeah. Well, I think it's just human nature, unless you're Daniel.
Sure. Sure. Anything else, or can we wrap this? Can we wrap this bad boy up?
Let's wrap it up.
All right. So yeah, that is 99 episodes, 100 episodes in the bank now. We want to hear from you folks, though. What is your favorite episode of ours? What did you enjoy the most? Not just the topic you enjoyed the most, but what is the conversation you enjoyed the most? What is what did we bring? Why do you listen to the show? That's a good question. Why do you listen to the show? Let us know. We want to hear from you.
Yeah, right. I think that would be valuable because I like Scott just said, I can't just go by what I enjoy. So
yeah. I mean, we want to make the show we like, but we also want other people to listen to it.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, like if, you said half of these episodes are things that were chosen by patrons, and so clearly, my life is enriched when we get feedback, because those are a form of feedback.
That is true. That is absolutely true.
Do 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 do. Doof.
All right, folks, that is it for that part of the show. Let's talk about the film industry, Matt. So the last time you and I talked, I think Tenet was trying to get released into theaters. Mulan had decided to be released onto Disney Plus, and there were a whole bunch of movies coming out in August, or not in August, in fall, in autumn. Well, guess what?
Uh-huh.
That's all changed.
What?
So Tenet did not make a lot of money. It's bad. It is a bad outcome. And then the most important so basically Tenet and Mulan serve in the industry as these test points, right? Tenet was a test point of, if we release a movie in the theater right now in the United States, will people go to the theater? Answer: no. Then Mulan tested a water by saying, if we release this movie onto our streaming service and charge a premium price for it, will people pay for it? Answer: not really. Mulan got between 60 and 90 million from its digital only domestic debut. That's not great because the movie cost $200 million to make, and I'm sure in their head was a surefire $1 billion film. Obviously, as soon as the pandemic happened, it was never going to be a $1 billion film, but I'm sure they wanted more money than that. Much, much, much more money than that. So not good. Not good, Matt. And the industry basically responded to this news by panicking, as it does. And it has pushed almost everything that was in the fall back. Like Black Widow. The big news this week was that the Black Widow, which was supposed to come out in November, is officially moved to May 2021, which will make it officially the first time since 2009 that there wasn't a Marvel movie released in a calendar year, which is crazy.
Yeah. That's, man, this is hitting me harder than anything else recently.
Yeah. So, I mean, what do you think? Like, what is the long-term repercussions of this thing going to be? Because, like, not everything has moved away from the holiday season yet. Dune is still coming out in December, they say. I don't know if that's going to happen. There's the next Pixar movie, Soul, that they confirmed is still coming out in November, still in theaters, they say. I don't know. I have a hard time believing all of this anymore.
Yeah. I don't know what to think about it, because it's like, okay, well, what does it cost them? And this is a question. I don't have any insight here. Like, what does it cost them to just keep it in the can and say, nah, we're going to release it later? Like, are they that short on cash flow that they literally need to put something out so that they can make some income? It's possible.
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of cash reserves some of these studios have.
I mean, theoretically, they could just keep borrowing money, right? Like, I mean, like, to keep operations running. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, I guess for a certain length of time, but at a certain point, they can't anymore, or they can just furlough everybody, I guess.
I mean, I do think that so much of this, any giant company in America in this day and age is based off of forecasting and planning and expectations that the longer you hold a movie, the worse off you're going to be. Like, I mean, Mulan was supposed to come out in March. They held it, hoping. It finally was released, and it bombed, basically. It was released in China. They built this movie to be a hit in China, and it did not do well in China at all. It for some reason, a movie made primarily by white people to appeal to Chinese people didn't really connect with them. I don't know why that was. It's crazy.
Yeah, so strange.
But and then of course it didn't do very well here either. And it's not a very good film, but that hasn't stopped the Disney films in the past from being giant hits. I mean, Lion King is $1.5 billion movie. That is one of the most successful movies ever, the remake of The Lion King. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think at some point you need to be able to tell your shareholders you have a plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we haven't seen any of these studios have a set plan. And it's very much been like, wait and see. Like everyone's moving cautiously and like waiting to see what the other people do. And not everyone has a ready-made, streaming platform to dump their stuff on, to test the
Yeah.
waters. Like, so
Right.
I don't know. I don't know. Like, I don't know. I forget who makes Dune. Is it Warner Brothers that does Dune?
I don't
I
know.
have to look. Dune producer. um, I gotta think that company is like really struggling to figure out what the hell they want to do right now, because
Yeah.
and the answers aren't simple.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I feel like they probably, I mean, they probably know what they probably did a calculation where they were like, look, like
Mhm.
either we hold on to, let's take Mulan as an example. Like either we hold on to this until this is all over for like a year, and nobody, like we'll basically have to spend a whole bunch more money to advertise it, like tens of millions of dollars to advertise it again, which we already
Mhm.
spent.
Yep.
Which is gone, like basically sunk cost advertising. So they're like, either we leverage this advertising sunk cost that we just spent on this movie and we just drop it on Disney Plus, and then maybe we get some auxiliary extra signups for Disney Plus, and or we hold on to it again. We pay for a whole new advertising campaign, and then we hope that the virus is over, and that people are still interested in it, and maybe it makes most of the money it would have made in the first place.
Sure.
Like,
Sure.
because doesn't advertising usually, like Disney probably spent like tens of millions of dollars advertising that movie, right? Like if
Yeah.
not
More.
more.
More. More. Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably. Literally, they say that if you take the budget of the reported budget of the movie, and that is usually close to what the total advertising spend is. So probably literally $100 million was spent advertising that movie.
Yeah.
And that's probably a low ball. They spend an absurd amount of advertising. Um, it's
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know if I've said something insightful by pointing out that the advertising is probably a big part of this. Like definitely, I mean, Tenet, they've been advertising the shit out of Tenet.
yeah,
So imagine that they didn't release it and then they had to spend all that money again, and then it's still a weird little Christopher Nolan movie where you're not really sure who's going to go see that, and
yeah,
it's in a weird uncertain time anyway. So
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, we like it's been interesting because I've been film Twitter, which is not the greatest example to go to, but like people have been saying, just release these movies on VOD, just release these movies on VOD, just fucking release Tenet on VOD. I know Christopher Nolan is a cinema purist and we love him for it. The movies and movie theaters are important, and that remains true, but just release the fucking movie on VOD. And I think what Mulan has basically demonstrated to all these companies now is, don't do that.
Yeah.
Because if you do that, you're shooting yourself in the foot, because that movie is maybe will like eke past profitable if it's lucky. I don't even know how they're going to consider I don't even know, like it's hitting Disney Plus. That's the thing about Mulan, is it's hitting like wide Disney Plus, not $30 extra in December. So like how are they going to consider views after that as part of, like, I don't even know how that works. I don't know how any of it works. The industry's so weird now, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Sure, they have some math, but
I think that's why you're seeing things like things move, because people were like, yeah, they're gonna fucking just release Black Widow on Disney Plus. There's platforms right there. They're just gonna do it. And then Disney looked at the Mulan numbers and said, nope, we're not doing that. That didn't work. Same with Soul. Like I think a lot of people were like, Soul, the Pixar movie, definitely going to be a Disney Plus release. Nope, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. The $30 buy-in, it turns out, is too much for the typical person. That's too much money.
yeah.
And
Well, yeah, that's true.
like we talked about when that was announced, I think that's a little bit illogical, because like if you have a family, especially if it's a kids movie that you're going to take your kids to, it ends up being that much anyway. But it just feel like it's not so much the logic or the rationality of the price, it's the feeling of it. It's the feeling that you're already paying for the service every month, and then they want another $30 to watch this movie, and that amount of money feels different to people.
Well, here's another thing, which I don't know I don't know, there's probably caveats and so forth to be made here, but like everybody wants to get out of the damn house. And like that, like especially now. So you give us the option of watching Mulan on our TV, which we've been watching every day anyway.
Hmm.
It's like, well,
Hmm.
that's not special. I'm not going to spend $30 to do what I was going to do anyway, except to watch
True.
this movie instead of whatever else thing. Like it's not special. It's not the difference between going to the theater and watching it on your TV when you're stuck in a pandemic is that like I'm just not motivated at all to pay for that. Whereas, you know, I can actually imagine a year from now or 2 years from now, we're not like desperate to get out of the house. And so I can't imagine just being like, okay, do you want to, hey, you guys want to go see, this new Pixar movie? Oh, you don't want to leave the house. Nobody feels like leaving the house right now. Okay, well, let's just watch it. Let's just pay $30 for it on the TV. Like I can see doing
Interesting.
that. I can see doing that 2 years from now.
Interesting. Yeah.
But not right now. I don't know if you feel me there.
No, I think you raise a really good point there. Because yeah, I mean, like an extra expense when you like the thing is that TV is fucking killing it right now.
Yeah.
Netflix is fucking killing it right now. We had conversations 12 months ago about how we were worried about Netflix because they need to maintain growth in order to have value because they've never been profitable. And they are fucking destroying it right now because everyone's just watching Netflix. So I think you're right that when we are inundated with streaming services, inundated with things to watch, with new TV every week, new movies every week that are already packaged deals as part of the fee that you're paying already, getting those people to go the extra mile to drop $30 um, when it's not a unique special experience. I think you're absolutely right. Yeah, I think there is something to that, and I think they've realized that now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But the part of that I'm less certain about is that in 2 years or whatever, I'll feel differently and I'll be predisposed because I'd always rather go, if it's a new Marvel movie, I'd always rather go out to the theater if I had the option.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, people smarter than we are going to be paying attention to all this. I personally think Dune is not coming out in December. I think there's going to have to be some big changes in the nation's collective anxiety about COVID before they will look at that and say, yeah, that's a smart thing to do to release this movie right now. And
Yeah.
I don't know if that's going to happen. We're paying attention to the vaccine trials, and it's not going well, man. They're having some problems with some of these vaccines. So I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. Hopefully
I
it all
certainly
resolves
I
soon.
certainly don't want to go.
Yeah. I mean, God, I want to go see Dune. Like
mm-hmm.
like I want to like, but I don't know. I guess I haven't actually sat down and made myself think through that yet, but
Alamo Drafthouse is extending their private theater rental thing nationwide. So they started in Austin and your town, and they are extending it to the rest of the Alamos. So
yeah. And so aren't they doing a thing where they're doing like spaced seating? I looked, I
yeah,
kind
I
of
mean
glanced at it.
all the theaters are like doing this, like where seating is spaced out, and they're doing mega cleaning between each seating, and like you can only take your mask off if you're eating, and like the people aren't even delivering the food to you. Like you order the food in advance and it's sitting there waiting for you, so it's like you don't have contact with anyone. They're all doing these things. It's just people are anxious and worried, and they should be, because theaters are like the worst possible place for the transmission of viruses. It's just not working. Like the Dallas Alamo Drafthouse has made this big deal about how we're open again, and 2 weeks later they shut down all but two of their locations because not enough people were going. So they're like, okay, we can't keep operating. So only two of the locations are currently open right now because no one's going.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's just really crazy. I think like the big theater chains are financially, I mean, they're suffering, but they have cash reserves and they have enough equity that they can keep limping along. But yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I hope there's a sudden change
Yeah,
right
me
before
too.
Dune comes out.
Just I want us to deal with this problem solely so we can go watch
Yeah,
Dune.
exactly.
I really want to see Dune in a theater. I really, really do.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's the only one on my list of like, do I really care about this film
Yeah.
succeeding? I very much do. I said this before. I'll be heartbroken if like it's a financial disaster and they like can't make the second half of the story.
Yeah, I mean that's the big deal is like which would be better for potential Dune sequel? Would sticking to their guns and releasing now, or would waiting? Like which long term generates more revenue, or at least more assurance that this is a series that they can make money with? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know the answer to that. Yeah. I did read that Jordan Peele, with the Candyman movie, which was pushed back till next year, he was very specific about not wanting to release it in theaters now because he did not want to be seen as them encouraging people to go to the theaters. Which, good looking out, Jordan Peele.
Yeah,
He's a good dude. It's a good dude.
I approve.
Yeah, me too. Don't go to the movie theaters right now, folks, unless you've rented the entire theater out, and even then, be careful.
Yeah.
Wear your masks.
Yep.
Doof. All right, Matt. This episode's running a little long, but I have one final question for you to finish the episode. We teased this at the start, so I have to ask it. Does Batman Returns own, actually?
Yeah.
So here's the impetus of this whole thing. I was on Twitter the other night, and one of the people I follow on Twitter is a film critic named Scott Wampler, who we've actually had as a guest on our Kingslinger show. So I can say friend of the pod, even though I don't think he listens to this. But friend of the pod, Scott Wampler, was rewatching Batman Returns, and he was talking about it, and he said, "Is Batman Returns the best Batman?" And I was like, huh. And so I went and watched Batman Returns. Batman Returns is the best Batman.
Yeah, I know.
That movie owns.
I know. It's not even close. It's because of Catwoman. Okay, and then it's also because of the Penguin,
and it's also because of Shrek.
Yes,
and it's also because it's horny as hell. And it's violent as hell, and it's weird as hell. It's got everything.
Yeah, right. And I still like. God, I'm so embarrassed. I'm forgetting
Michael Keaton.
Michael Keaton. Michael Keaton's Batman is still like the best Batman. I'm pretty sure.
I mean, you're not going to get a disagreement from this guy.
Yeah. Like I mean, like who could have like nobody's even close actually. So like, why am I asking? Yeah, I mean,
like,
yeah.
The first time we see Batman in this movie, he's sitting in his huge fucking creepy gothic manor because it's Tim Burton and it's wonderful, and he's like sitting there in the dark, like with his hand on his chin on his fist, like just like being miserable and thinking, and then the bat signal goes off, and for whatever reason, he's got this thing hooked up on his house where when the bat signal goes off, he has separate bat signals like on poles on the spires of his house that activate and then turn and then shine the bat signal through his window, which is just wild.
It's great. It's perfect.
And then that beautiful Tim Burton shot where he stands up and he's got the bat signal on the bookcase behind him that's shining through. It's such a good fucking movie.
It is.
They don't need to ever try to do Catwoman again because Michelle Pfeiffer was the perfect Catwoman.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, especially when that came out in our lives, like that portrayal of Catwoman wormed its way deep into my amygdala and has never really released me.
You want to know why?
Why?
Because you were a little boy and she's all sexy and
that's,
shit.
I mean, yes, that's exactly why. I wasn't confused.
You just seemed like you hadn't figured it out yet, Matt. So I just want, like, Michelle Pfeiffer is super hot and she's super sexy in this movie with her black leather,
right? And like the sort of dark, violent, sexy that is not in a lot of movies, especially not children's movies.
Remember when the Penguins had rocket launchers?
Remember when the penguin bit off the guy's nose and it
Yeah.
was, yeah, that
God, that
movie's
movie
awesome.
owns.
Yeah.
Y'all, if you haven't watched Batman Returns in a while, go watch Batman Returns. It fucking owns. Remember when the Batmobile like split off the sides and was a little tiny
That was
thing?
the coolest thing that has ever happened in a movie.
Remember when this is just going to be me saying remember when 30 times, but remember when he needed to do it and like flicked the switch and it didn't work and he goes, that's going to be a problem. Like he's a perfect Batman.
He is. He is.
It manages to both be like the melodramatic, like kind of dark Batman thing while still also being like campy and silly. Like
Yeah.
it's just so good. Oh my god. Batman Returns, folks, go watch it.
Yeah, I mean the whole ending sequence is like this operatic um like just high drama of God, everything that happens in that ending sequence. I have it like on video replay in my brain. I've watched it so many times because it's so intense.
I'm gonna go watch it again. I'm gonna go edit this podcast. I'm gonna go watch Batman Returns again because it fucking owns.
Great, do it.
5 stars. Batman Returns better than The Dark Knight. 100%.
I mean, yeah.
Some people are gonna get mad at us, but I don't care because they probably haven't watched Batman Returns recently, and they don't know.
You're right.
That's all I had. That's all I had for you. I just wanted to make sure we were on the same page. Batman Returns.
We are.
Good. It owns. It's on HBO Max if people have HBO Max subscriptions and want to go watch it, like me, because that's what I did. And
I guess I have to get an HBO Max subscription now.
I mean, or you can just realize that it's fucking criminal that I don't own Batman Returns on disc and I need to go buy that movie immediately.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm thinking.
I'll probably just buy it. Yeah, I'll probably just buy it on Amazon or something.
Yeah. Yes. All right. Hey, that's it, Matt. We're done.
Cool.
That's all we had for you folks this week. Episode 100. We did it. Thank you so much to all of you who have come along this ride with us. Like we said before, let us know, what are your favorite episodes? What are your favorite topics? What are your favorite things we do? Do you like the TV episodes? Like we said, we didn't like them. Are we just totally off base about this and you actually disagree and you think they're good? Let us know. What about Batman Returns? Does it own? Say yes at doofmedia@gmail.com or over on our Twitter account at doofmedia.
Yeah, and if you're not already subscribed to this podcast feed with its 100+ episodes, we encourage you to do so and ensure you never miss an episode. And you can find the Doofcast on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, and pretty much anywhere else podcasts can be found.
And you can find this and all of our shows over at doofmedia.com. That's where you can find Kingslingers, the show we talked about, our Stephen King podcast. That's where you can find our book clubs, which are on this feed, but different. Like we said, we have a book club tomorrow about Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. It's going to be a fun conversation. So that's Friday, the 25th of September at 9:30 p.m. Central Time over on our YouTube page. We will be talking about that book, and it's going to be a good one. I can't wait.
Yeah.
And if you like what we do here, what do they do, Matt? If they like what we do here, what should they do?
They should support us on patreon.com/doofmedia.
What's that?
It is a website where you can support people.
100 episodes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, our Patreon is our way to donate and support our podcast. We are fully patron funded, as you guys have heard. We don't run any ads. We don't do anything else. We just get support through Patreon. So everything we do here is supported by our patrons. So thank you to our patrons. If you want to become one of them, you can head on over to patreon.com/doofmedia, pledge $1 a month, pledge $5 a month, pledge $10 a month. And at every single one of those levels, you get some new cool stuff. Matt talked about his super secret Freeman Bros podcast in which they talked about MMORPGs. That is a bonus at our $10 a month level. So if you subscribe, you get access to his entire backlog of those, which I think they're like 6 now, right?
Yeah. There's going to be another one pretty soon, too. We already recorded it.
Plus a bunch of other bonus content. You can check all that out at patreon.com/doofmedia.
Yeah. And you can potentially, suggest a movie for us and get either on the, Matt Freeman, I enjoyed this conversation award list or the Matt Freeman, glad you made me watch this list.
Or possibly the Scott Daly, why do you keep doing this to me list. I already told you I like anime now. You've won. Stop it, please, for the love of God list.
But don't get on that list, though. Thanks. Thank you. Also, please consider rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts, because every review helps us get more exposure and introduces new people to the content that we're making here.
That is correct. Matt, next week, it's going to be another one of our Council of Doof episodes. Episode 101 will be us turning back to the council and saying, what you got for us this time. And this month, the council is bringing us a movie called Bahubali, The Beginning. This is an Indian film. It is like an Indian epic action film that is supposed to be incredible. I am very much looking forward to watching this movie. It's been on my radar for a while, but I've never gone ahead and actually watched it. So I'm very excited to talk about this movie with you, Matt. I think it's going to be very, very good.
Fun. I know nothing about it, so I'm excited.
Neither do I. It is available on Netflix. So if you have a Netflix subscription, you can watch Bahubali: The Beginning in preparation for our show next week. And then you can vote for whether you think it's good enough to enter into the Doof canon of the best films of all time. So we'll see you next week to talk about Bahubali: The Beginning.
My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say. My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say.